Welcome back, everyone. Moving further to our last panel discussion of the summit. On the topic Future of Digital Finance in India, are we ready for neo-banking? For which I would like to welcome Asif Ali, Senior Executive Integrated Marketing Group, Elets Technomedia, who will be moderating the session, Vaibhav Joshi, Chief Digital Officer, Equitas Small Finance Bank, Ashish Tiwari, SVP and Head of Engineering, NEO, Neeraj Bhope, Founding Member, FI, Kashyap Mahavadi, Founder and Chief Executive Officer, Dinero Bank, Parikshit Chitalkar, Co-Founder, Stashfin. A very warm welcome to you all. Now, I would like to hand over session to Asif to take this further. Over to you.
Thank you, Shivani. Thank you for this warm welcome and a brief introduction about this panel. So today we are here for a panel which is very, interesting and important for future, which we can say, because this is known as future of digital finance in India. And going ahead, we have got very eminent name and faces, you can say, of new banking industries, which is like we have got Vaibhav Joshi, CEO of Equitas Small Finance Bank, Ashish Tiwari, SVP and Head of Engineering NEO. We have got Neeraj, co-founder of Pi, and we have got Kashyap Mahavadi, founder and Chief Executive Officer of Dinerio Bank. We have got Parikshit Chitalkar, co-founder of Stashfin. So we can see a good and known faces, like eminent names in neo banking. So quickly moving upon to our questions, we can say, like as we know that new banks have created, resources. We can see a lot of digital shift in past 2 years. Couple of years we have seen we are forced to use, you can say, or you can say we have got this opportunity to use this as an resources during this pandemic time where we were like into this internet and digital transformation. Moving ahead, we can see a lot of shift in digital disruption in banking and finance industry also. And this is how like things are going ahead. So we can see in India new hub for like new banks which is going on. So what is your views? Will it take will it begin the revolution in finance industry? I would quickly take this question to Mr. Vaibhav Joshi. If you can just put some light or throw some your views on this topic. Over to you, Mr. Vaibhav.
Thank you, Asif. So, see, neo-banking space is, growing globally. If you look at India, India is at the, right there when it comes to, the way neo-banks have started and the way neo-banks have started growing. Look at the digital adoption that we saw in COVID. The consumer actually shifted from a brick and mortar setup overnight to internet banking, mobile banking, and then eventually, the consumer had a like this spike shift onto the neo banking and fintech products. If you look at the neo banking space in India, right from liabilities to asset to payments to MSMEs, all across, there are some good amount of products that have come out. You look at Phi that Neeraj is doing, you look at Neo that Ashish is doing, you look at Jupiter that Jitendra is doing, and then you look at Frio that Anuj is doing on the liability side, and then you look at on the asset side, on the digital lending, there are so many neobanks that have come in. On the payment side, that's how it had started. So yes, definitely this market is headed for a disruption and revolution. As we go ahead, Asif, what happens is the consumer is actually looking at something different. The consumer is looking for a simplistic solution, simplistic experience. If you look at any banking app today, you will find hundreds of features that are built in the banking app. At the same time, if you download one of these neo banking apps, then you will realize that it's a very simple UI UX. It's a very simple use case that is captured. It's either banking or it's banking plus investments or banking plus savings or something or the other. Okay, but the entire use case or proposition is they have kept it very simple. The consumer service aspect, the consumer servicing aspect, the community aspect, okay, the experience aspect, and then there is the aspiration aspect of where the consumer actually starts with a product and then aspires to a different product and bases his behavior he actually gets upgraded to another product and then another product and another product. Okay, and that entire servicing in a pure digital manner, having a bank on my mobile phone, at the comfort of my home or at the comfort of my car, and I can just tuck 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 and it's done, tuck 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 and it's done. That entire thing has brought in much needed revolution. While it started with the millennials, okay, now it's moved across generations. Okay, today if you ask me, then when was the last time I visited a branch? Probably I don't know, 7, 8, 9 years back. Other than being a banker and visiting my branch, but from a banking perspective, maybe 7, 8, 9 years back. Okay, unlike my father who goes to a bank branch for, it's a social event for him. Half a day, घर से बाहर निकलो, first half, come back by lunch, सबको मिलते मिलते. But then having said that, today that's not the case. Okay, my daughter, when I explain her about finance and all these things, she says, hey, that you were doing, Papa, that project about NeoX, that ad that came during IPL and then World Cup, it's so catchy and stuff, and she gets attracted to that. She doesn't understand the 7%, 5%, 6% and stuff. So it is a revolution. In coming times, I think a lot of business is going to be shifted to fintechs and neo banking. Banking is going to be there because India has got a very strong regulated structure. But neo banking revolution is going to somewhere change the race from maybe a marathon. It has come down to 400 meters, but from a 400 meters is going to become a 100 meters, and maybe it's time for banks and fintechs to do a 100 by 4 relay kind of a thing where I pass the baton to you, you pass the baton to the next one, and so on. Asif.
Thank you for your views. It was really refreshing to understand, like, the impact which is going on, and like, yeah, this is basically, upcoming thing which in finance industry. So quickly moving upon to Mr. Neeraj, if you can just put some light, or give your views or quick remark on the same.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for inviting me to this discussion to start with, and happy to be discussing this with this panel that we have today. I think Vaibhav, just like Vaibhav mentioned, like his father was a banker. I think my father was also a banker, and getting my memories fresh. Like if I go back 30 years, right, visit to the bank was a definite kind of a time that you have to set aside for the day. And if you come back to today, it's just revolutionary that with apps like Pi or Jupyter, NeoX, right, you can sign up in less than a few minutes, right, and you get a brand new account open. So definitely from that perspective, the consumer will get a lot of power in terms of choosing which bank they want to work with. And just as we've seen competition play up in, say, the telecom sector, I think we should see something similar in the banking space as well. And I would like to mention that India has been a great place for fintech, right? And that's because there's just such strong tailwinds in terms of the intent on building we have this whole jam trinity, as you call it, the Jandan, the mobile trinity. And there's been such a big push to UPI. We are seeing a little bit of traction starting now with the account aggregator network, the enablement network, and India Stack. So, and with deeper cell phone penetration, everything, we are in a place today where opening bank accounts securely, getting to actually know your customer fully remote is a reality, and tremendous kind of development that will happen over the next couple of years, and the democratization of the of data that account aggregator and Sahamati will bring about, I think, will revolutionize this space in the coming few years.
Thank you for your views. Now I will quickly take a feedback, or you can say your views, Mr. Parikshit, if you can throw some light on the same.
Thanks, Asif, and thanks, Vaibhav and Neeraj, for sharing your thoughts. I actually agree, with both the panelists. I actually think that the revolution, so to speak, is already here. It's growing by the day, and as happened in the internet age, right, where India kind of leapfrogged into the mobile generation. I think that's what's happening here as well, and it's also very natural because every business in its life cycle needs to evolve with the times. So it's not only like in general in your life as the adoption of mobile technologies grows, people are going to find it more and more convenient to kind of interface with their money, using these mediums as well. That's one. Second important point here is that with this new banking revolution, what fintechs such as Stashfin and Fi and Neo are able to do is they're able to develop very bespoke experiences for each customer. For example, and this is what our government has been speaking about for a long time now, which is the concept of financial inclusion. What does that really mean? That means that you have to now develop very bespoke underwriting models to be able to uh, make credit available to people who traditional bankings, because of whatever regulatory constraints or other constraints, were not able to do. And these sort of bespoke models for underwriting, for savings, for insurance, for investments, they need a pace of innovation, and they need a segment focus that is unfortunately very hard for traditional players to do. But and in the same way, I also want to mention that it's very encouraging to see the pace at which even traditional banks are actually adopting, and how they're interacting with the fintechs, as well as what the regulator is doing. I mean, we are a part of multiple forums where RBI will actually ask us questions, listen to what we are doing, how we're doing things. Some of the indications that you're getting from the regulator now in terms of the regulatory changes are very, very favorable to fintech companies doing what they do. So, I mean, in summary, I think the revolution that we're speaking about is already here. There is a lot of work happening in this space in India, and I think it is not going to be a winner take all situation. There will be more than enough room for multiple players to be around. Reason largely being that India is a very, very diverse country. Like every 25 kilometers, if you go, language is different, people are different. So it actually, specifically in India, you need to have very, very bespoke experiences when it comes to people dealing with their money. So I think it's a great space to be in, great time. We're all very fortunate to be in this space at this time.
Thank you for your views. Basically, we see a lot of neo bankings coming up with new innovations and new ideas also, new often, so you can say new perspectives for audience, or you can say the consumers to act upon. So with this, I will quickly move upon to Mr. Uh, Kashyap to give your views on the same. How you think like new banking is a hub, like India is a new hub of new banking, and will it bring revolution, and how will it bring revolution?
Sure, sure. Thanks, Asif. Thanks for having me here. Really nice to be meeting with all of you. So actually, I agree with all the panelists that were here, especially with Parikshit when he says that neobanks need to have a segment focus when they're building something, because India, we all know that it's a diverse economy, and each segment of the demographics that we have a different use case and a different problem that they need to solve for their financial service requirements. But before that, I'll just add one quick point as to why neobanks will be the new age disruptors, right? Which is that in banking over the past 5, 6, 7 decades, globally as well, even in India, banks are focused on product innovation more than customer experience, right? That has always been the case. You can think about product innovations in the sense of like ATM or even credit card or anything, right? Now, best example of a mixture of product innovation and customer experience, superior customer experience, is UPI, right? That is a perfect example of how you can crack both of them and scale and build that kind of distribution, mass market distribution, right? That's where, I mean, now UPI has put India on a global map and sort of is a use case for everybody to study around the globe. Now, neobanks in India have a much bigger challenge because of UPI, because you're not necessarily only cracking peer to peer transactions, it's already cracked. You are now trying to look at deeper product innovations, like some of which product Parikshit has mentioned. At the same time, think about unique customer experiences that you can provide depending on the segment you're catering to, right? And I think neobanks are best placed to do so than traditional banks, because of course traditional banks have a bunch of other things to look at and may not be able to focus, have that narrow focus on a particular use case, a particular segment, right? So that's my couple of cents.
Yeah, thank you for your views, Mr. Kashyap. Now we'll like to ask Mr. Ashish Tiwari. Basically, you being head of engineering, how do you portray this like on a technical stuff? Like how will you portray this topic in a technical point of view?
Yeah, Asif, thanks for having me in the conversation. I believe a lot of our peers already covered most of it. So, we talked about customer experience. I think just to add to that customer experience bit, giving an example that if you go to HDFC today, if you want to open a savings account, you have to go to a different branch, right? If you have to open a wealth account, then someone will tell, this doesn't happen in this branch. 1 kilometer from here, you have to go and go to HDFC Live, and then only you can open a wealth account. So I'm just giving an example how technology has reformed the customer experience. In the same application, you can do savings, you can do investments, you can do lending, and you can do multifold or multi, enablement of different functionalities. Just to add to that, why I feel things are going to revolutionize now. See, not too long ago in India, the problem was that we had a large unbanked population in India. The scale has now slightly tilted with the weight of being underbanked population more. And when I say underbanked population, these are the people who have bank accounts, but they do not have access to the full range of financial services. I think that is what is going to change and the game for neobanks. And this is where neobanks will have an upper hand. See, what happens is that a digitally empowered customer, let's say I have a bank account, but I do not have access to it. And that is where technology comes into the place. Now, if I have access to the application, I will not only, do the savings transactions. I will do much more than that. I would like to explore maybe various investment opportunities. I would like to buy insurance. I will try to do borrowing, lending. I would like to build on savings. And that is where, I believe that banks are tuned to work in a certain way. It is not about good or bad, but that is the way they have been working, right? And that is where I believe this new banks will definitely create a lot of rigor around it, and that is a lot of space for new banks to capture.
Thank you, Mr. Ashish, for your remark on this. But as we know, like when there is like opportunities, there is like challenges also in every sector. We can say. So quickly moving upon to our like next question, I can say we will be like what challenges do you see in the growth of new banking in India? Like in a standpoint of like you can say in the regulation standpoint of view, or else any other factors like what are challenges do you think like uh, are like new bankings are facing in India? I would quickly throw this question to Mr. Vaibhav Joshi. If you can just quickly answer on this, thing.
See, Asif, today this sector, there is no licenses if you ask me. When it comes to neobanks, neobanks have to rely on traditional banks to partner with. Okay, eventually, what's going to happen is there will be a separate category. We are hoping there will be a separate category, where RBI is going to come out and somehow bring the neobanks into the ambit of regulations. Not just neobank, fintechs as well. So what's going to happen and what probably should happen is today the reason one of the reasons neobanks are so successful is because majority of the regulations are actually managed by the banks. Okay, that's where the heavy lifting happens. Now, when this is going to be, when RBI extends this particular thing, like maybe a neo banking license or a digital only bank license or something, to the neobanks, two things will happen. First, neobanks will realize that it is not just about acquisition and customer experience and servicing. It is also about the product. That is what the bank generally focuses on, and that is what Kashyap was talking about earlier. But at the same time, what will happen in that process is, uh, you know, neobanks, because of their experience of offering a particular use case driven solution, okay, the deepening, okay, not just the acquisition, but the deepening will also happen better. How? Asif, because once a neobank gets licensed by RBI to do that business, the dependence on the bank goes away completely. Today, a neobank has to carry out its business basis its understanding with the bank. Okay, it's like a joint venture. Okay, where the back end product is provided by the bank, and the neobanking partner takes it to the market. Okay, all the regulatory controls, right from whether it's a KYC to the storing of the funds to interest calculations, interest rollout, etc. All that is managed by the bank at its end. And there are hundreds of compliances that the bank actually asks the neobank to take care of. There is reporting, all those things. Having said it, from a regulator perspective, India is actually coming out very, the regulator is walking hand in glove with the industry in the country. RBI has been, very industry friendly, and as Parikshit was mentioning earlier, RBI has been across forums trying to take this feedback from fintechs, from neobanks, even from the banks as to how should this new categorization happen. And eventually we see regulations coming in where it's going to be a much more inclusive kind of a setup. And India is a big country, India is a vast country, there is great amount of population in the country, and hence there is tremendous amount of opportunity. So once these regulations do come in, whether it's on a liability side, asset side, payment side, again, you don't need that many regulations, but this is going to boom, Asif. This is going to boom. Over to you, Asif.
Thank you for your views. Now I will quickly move upon to Mr. Parikshit. If you can give your views on the same.
I think Vaibhav, brought in a very important point. Is that it's and this is the industry is in a little bit of a nascent stage, so I'm sure this will evolve, and the regulator is kind of focused on making sure that this does evolve. But see, we have to understand that we are all talking about something that's in the business of money, right? Money is the lifeline of the economy. Also, our country traditionally has been generally weak on financial education. Like I'm sure all of us went to school, we never learned even things like compound interest and how loans work and things like that. They were not taught to us in school. So therefore, while a lot of new age fintechs do tend to have concerns over regulatory oversight, but I think it's actually a very important backbone. And we are a regulated NBFC as well as a part of our platform. It actually forces a level of discipline that is very important in a young organization, especially when you are in dealing in the business of money. So I think that, given with the fact that the regulators has been very forthcoming in terms of understanding these regulation the industry innovations, is overall a very encouraging sign for the industry. So you will see over time, and right now I also agree with what Vaibhav said. A lot of what is happening on the core banking rails. Companies that are issuing products are largely selling products of banks. In some cases, obviously, people are, especially in the lending space, people are their own NBFCs and so on and so forth. However, for the market to mature, that level of product innovation over and above the experience innovation will also have to come in. And I think that's a matter of time. A lot of work is already happening in that space. There are banks such as Equitas obviously has been very collaborative with the industry. So and it's not just collaboration from a distribution standpoint; it's actually collaboration from an experience sharing and a learning sharing standpoint. There are banks now that have early stage investment arms that will actually fund and back startups, which is all net, I mean, it's all a completely positive sign for the industry. So I think, I'm extremely bullish on the way this will grow. Of course, as regulations come in, some degree of consolidation is bound to happen. But yeah, I mean, we're certainly excited for the future. Looking forward to seeing how this plays out.
Thank you for your views. I would again move upon to Mr. Neeraj. If you can just throw some light on this, Jack, your views on this.
So if I have to give an emoji to what Vaibhav and Parikshit said, and that's a big thumbs up, right? Like tremendous, I think, respect from the neo banking side for our partners and what they do on the product side. Right? So traditional banks actually take on the enormous kind of load today of the regulatory framework, KYC, AML, all of that. So we do realize that as things evolve in this space, once new banks start getting into the actual product side or the financial product side, uh, there will be challenges in terms of learning that space, right? Traditional banks have been at this for decades now, and there is a lot of accumulated knowledge there that will need to be absorbed and figured out. But in general, though, like RBI, as you see, has been very, very supportive of fintech in India. As you see, other bodies like NPCI also push on things like UPI, Sanity account aggregator, and we feel that a regulatory framework for new banking would probably be like the next step. We've already seen some initial steps there with an API of paper coming in recently that have put down a plan for digital banking license here. And we hope that for both retail as well as enterprise banking, we soon see a regulatory framework, which always is a good thing because then you're not guessing on what you can do, what you cannot do, what reduces your kind of business risk in that sense. You can invest very confidently in areas that you see will add value to customers. Right? So I think we do feel that from a space evolution perspective, I think regulation will kind of be supported, and the challenges we see will be on trying to figure out how to do what the central banks are doing here. And that will be both from a product perspective as well as operating the system and technology side.
Thank you for your views. As Mr. Webb said, like regarding like traditional banking and such as like neo banking, or you can say the platforms which are coming up goes hand in hand. So same way, like what are challenges do you think? Like I would like to throw this question to Mr. Ashish Tiwari from New York. Like what are the challenges you think like new banks are facing in their growth as of now?
Yeah, I think Asif, it was covered by RPS that one of the biggest challenges that the RBI licensing is not there. So that definitely is getting addressed. Apart from that, till the time that is not there, from technical point standpoint, the other challenge is that this data of the customer is with the bank, and bank is the owner of this data. Now, what happens because of that? The challenges which new banks face as of today because of that if you want to do a cross sell, let's say that I would like to sell lending or any other cross selling, then either this customer has to again go through that same KYC journey which he would have done primarily already to onboard himself as a bank customer, or again the data privacy comes into picture if you start sharing data. So I think we are coming up with personal data protection bill and other bills which are also there, like the India's GDPR bill or equivalent to that. So I think that is where we are facing challenges. While the data is there, but we sharing the data across for cross selling is becoming difficult. And then the security of the data also, as of today, resides with both neobank and the uh, partner banks both. So security definitely becomes a challenge now, since we have very limited access to the data. Building anything on top of that, for example, if I want to build some analytics on top of that, then that also becomes a challenge. So once I think this problem is resolved in terms of having the digital license within India, that should give a lot of leeway to the technology bound neobanks to drive much better customer experience, and they will be able to see much lot of cross functional or cross sell selling happening on the same platform which they have downloaded for specifically bank acquisition.
Thank you, Ashish, for your views. It is really making us understand like how actually like things are going on and how it's need to be covered up. Same in that context, I would quickly move up on to Mr. Kashyap. If we see like after like coming up with new ideas and everything, we basically face like I know there are like regulation point of view, like there are challenges, but apart from that there will be much more things, because whenever we come up with new ideas or new concepts, there are challenges which you need to face. So I believe you might, if you can throw some light on the same.
Sure. I think what I would say is that see, because it is a partnership model right now, there is no, like the panel has mentioned, there's no regulatory license for a new bank or digital bank or anything of that sort at this point. So we're primarily sort of building on a partnership model, right? Now think about it. There's a fintech and there's a legacy bank. The fintech is tech first, cloud first, state of the art, to looking at the best sort of tools for front end, back end, design, UI, everything, right? Whereas not all banks are sort of leading at the forefront of technology innovation, right? Most banks are right now not capable of sort of building elaborate sort of holistic API stack and sort of exposing it to fintechs, and that marriage will not work out, right? So you have to. This is sort of like a yin and yang. Only that the few handful of banks that are tech ready right now, like Equitas Bank, for example, they're ready to sort of partner and take it forward. So what I would say is that because of this, there's a time to market that the neobank, that the fintech has to spend, and that's significantly high, which will again imply that it's capital intensive for them to sustain for such a long period of time before they go into the market. And we've seen this happen with some of the bigger players in the fintech space, in the new banking space as well. But of course, having said that, it's only a matter of time that because some of these banks are now equipped, the rest of them will also follow suit because they don't want to miss out on capturing market share and capturing the new demographics, right? It's only a matter of time, but currently that is a challenge, right? You see that a technologically advanced fintech is sort of having to deal with a legacy system in most cases, right? So that I would say is the challenge today.
Thank you, Kashyap. Thank you for your views on the same. Same way, like we can see, a lot of like collaborations things is going on. Like as you all are saying, like there are like a lot of collaborations. So if you guys can like give some ideas or views on like why collaboration is a new way of innovating, like to ensure continuity and beyond. So if like first of all, I would like to ask Mr. Vaibhav, like I've seen like a lot of collaborations also going on with Equita Small Finance Bank. So like I would love to hear from you, sir.
See, Asif, collaboration is the way forward for any bank. There is a traditional business, and then there is B, a business that fintechs can get to the bank. Okay, now in the traditional business model, a lot of banks have done a lot of investment in the brick and mortar setup. For a new age bank like Equitas, which has only been in existence for 5 years, we feel that digital is the way forward through which we can actually accelerate and catch up for the time that we were not there as a bank and other banks were getting the mind share and getting the consumers. But having said that, if you look, then a lot of mainstream banks today also have started coming out with their own fintech divisions. And what is this fintech division? See, we saw the advent of digital banking sometime after 2013, 2014, and at that time led by Yes Bank. API banking was the norm, and today what we are seeing is this advent of neobanks and fintech, and where we are looking at fintech banking. And recently, I can talk of two of the banks who have announced that they are coming out with fintech department, because the idea is that they want to collaborate with these fintech partners who are agile, who are nimble footed. See, for a bank to create applications, or create products, and service the customers or acquire customers the way a fintech does, it's extremely difficult in that pace and through that simplicity. Because what happens is banks is heavily governed by regulations, which a fintech or a neobank is not today. Okay. And that is what, and banks have to think of all the other things, like one of the co-panelists was talking about legacy systems. Okay. Banks have a hardcore core, it has a hardcore middle layer, then there is a ESB layer, and then on top of that we have this partner apps. So when we talk about this core, even the smallest of the implications can have implication on the entire system ultimately. Okay. So while if I'm doing a single product, it's very easy for me to to budget for the scale, and then accordingly get that kind of a bandwidth to that particular product. But if I talk about having that implications across the board, then it's going to be very difficult. And that is where that nimble footedness and agility of a fintech comes into play. And this is from a distribution perspective. Now look at a fintech or a neobank from a technology perspective, because there are a lot of fintechs which specialize in technology. But again, when they specialize in technology, they talk about doing a particular task. So whether it's a partner onboarding on a B2B2C model, whether it's the eKYC or the vKYC part of it, whether it's a financial profiling engine, whether it's a particular AI or a RPA or a bot kind of a thing, then that particular fintech specializes in that particular process, and then it caters to the processes, that processes for a partner bank. So yes, Asif, answering the question, collaboration is the way forward for 2022, 2023, and beyond. And that is the only way that banks are going to have that kind of a leap. Otherwise, see, getting at maybe a 20, 30, 40% increment in terms of deposit base, in terms of garnering the deposits, or in terms of acquisition of customers is okay with a brick and mortar setup. But if you want a exponential, the way we did with NeoX, 1 million savings account customers in 9 months of launch, the fastest and the largest neobank in the country. So if you want that kind of exponential, then you will have to look at collaborations. Thank you, Asif. Over to you. And as I had requested earlier, I will have to exit the panel now. I have a flight to catch. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
And
sir.
thanks for joining in. Thanks for giving your valuable views, Mr. Vaibhav. So again, quickly jumping upon with the same question, as we, I also believe, like like the collaborations are the only way you can say moving forward, or you can say like when we collaborate, we grow, and when we grow, well, like we become strong with new ideas and new technology. So again, this question shifting to Mr. Neeraj, if you can just throw some your views on the same.
Yes, I think the collaboration is central to how this space will get a foothold in the market. Right? Like to me, I think somebody made a point earlier. Market. I think if you look at it from a fintech perspective, the banking partner just plays such a great role in terms of taking over the regulatory aspect and the offline aspect of this business. Um, okay, just 1 minute. Is this better now?
Much better,
So
much
Yes.
better. Please
okay,
go ahead.
so the bank, I think, takes over such an important part of the regulation and offline part of this business, that the fintech can actually concentrate on doing what it does best, which is app development and And on the flip side, of course, the for the bank, there is a very different DNA in terms of the kind of technical talent that they can attract, the product talent that they can attract. So for them also, it's a win-win in terms of a partnership with a fintech. Um, we do believe that there will be partnerships that will also be shaped by the kind of areas that different banking players are established in. So for example, the darling of the fintech world today, which is Federal Bank, if you see, like, every second fintech is partnering with them, and to a large extent, I think Federal Bank is a very strong regionally in the southern part of the country, and they would like to expand into the across the country, and these partnerships allow them to get that expansion at a really fast pace, right? So I think collaboration is definitely central to everything. Maybe over time we will see some evolution in maybe some form of a vertical integration that fintechs do, or maybe coming from the banking side as well. We'll see how it evolves.
Thank you for your views, Mr. Neeraj. Same question to Mr. Parikshit, if you can throw some light on the same.
Sorry, I was on mute there. No, so I agree that it's what this what the collaborative structure allows you to do is just at a very fundamental first principles basis is that you get to focus on your strengths, and I think if you really want to grow, that's the only way that it's possible. I used to always have this argument with my parents that if I was not good at math or physics, why send me to physics tuitions? I was good at computers, so why didn't you send me to some computer classes? I would have gotten to my outcome much faster than to sort of force me into that direction. And I think this is this general mindset in India needs to evolve, and collaboration is the only way out. So as Kashif was also pointing out earlier, some of these banks, due to various reasons, and many of them are rightfully correct reasons, they do not have the skill set, the wherewithal, or the agility to adopt some of these newer technologies. And I'll sort of reiterate the fact that I've worked in banking in Canada for many years, and I've over and now doing this in a B2C fintech space, I've developed appreciation for why that method of something taking 3 months to develop, where in my day it takes 3 hours to develop, is actually very, very important. It has its time and place because you're dealing with thousands of crores of people's money. So you need to make sure that those systems are resilient. They've seen the test of time. That doesn't mean that you can't evolve, but there is a case for that. So they do that really, really well, and we do something else well. So if you mix the two together, you get exponential growth versus having incremental growth. So I think it's a no-brainer. Collaboration is the way forward, and as some Kashif mentioned, Federal Bank, SBM Bank, Equitas, where was the panel? These guys are actually doing a really good job embracing this sort of thought process, hiring young leaders from non-traditional banking platforms who kind of bring this fresh thinking forward. Is actually a very encouraging sign to see. So we partner with a host of banks on our end as well, and the experience over we've been doing this for the last 5 years. I can certainly see it's becoming better every single evolution, right? They are also keen to learn, and simple things like reconciliation. The way banks do reconciliation is like a rock solid system that is bulletproof. There is no room for error. Fintech should learn to either adopt that or come up with a way where that is something that's done by the experts. So yeah, I mean, there's the only way forward, I think, and it allows people to leverage their strengths, and therefore growth becomes exponential.
Thank you, Parikshit, for your views. Again, as we got this point of view from Mr. Vaibhav regarding collaborations with Neo and like opening a lot of 1 million in 9 months, 1 million account in 9 months and all. So in that the context, I would love to move this question to Mr. Ashish Tiwari. If you can give your views on what why do or how do you think like collaboration is a new way of innovation or innovating in like continuing or going ahead with new banking services?
Yeah, sure, Asif. Yeah, I believe our panelists covered it. I believe that fintech and banks are a perfect complements to each other. They have their own qualities, skill sets, uh, and perfection. One is perfect in doing technology driven stuff, whether it is onboarding, acquiring customers, marketing. So they have the new banks come up with their own niche. At the same time, the banks have their own niche, whether when it comes to product, data, security, platforms. So, and that is why I believe that both of them are playing their own roles and both of them complement each other. I think Neeraj covered it slightly that how Federal Bank, they are seeing them expanding on the south as well. Similarly, a South Indian bank which was Equitas, we have onboarded customers from Assam and so on and so forth. So one that the value add which new banks are bringing to the banks, traditional banks, they increasing the reachability of the banks, right? Uh, where their local banks are able to access their reach to pan India. The customer experience of the bank definitely increases multifold when banks comes into picture. I think just to add to, and all of these points are largely covered by our panelists. One thing which I would like to add to what has not been covered is that the when you do a 360 degree analysis of this entire partnership, then there is a closed loop happening. And that closed loop is that the fintech is again going to provide this entire data which they are capturing from the bank customers back to the bank. And that is where I believe that I would like to use the term insight driven organizations, where the bank can become insight driven organizations. They were not having this ability. They were having a lot of data, but making decisions based on the data. I think that is what closes the loop. And frankly speaking, data is more valuable than gold and oil today, if you ask me. So that data is already residing with the banks, and new banks are using it, acquiring customers, and then again, looping it back to the bank in terms of how can we use this data more intelligently, and then offer some data analysis services on top of that. What all cross selling we can do for the same customer, how much lending we should give to specific customers. So all that once we close this feedback loop, that is also one pointer which I wanted to cover, that how banks and new banks are complementing each other.
Thank you, Ashish. Thank you for your views. Again, this same question to Mr. Kashyap, if you can throw some light on this, like why and how collaboration is a new way of innovation and ensuring continuity and ahead.
Sure. So I would just like to add two or three points very quickly, right? Number one, of course, first of all, to set the premise, collaboration is sort of the best situation we have right now. And the reasons are so on, right? Number one, you're reducing cost of acquisition for banks significantly, right? And traditionally, the added sort of addendum to that is that basically customers are now found online. These are digital natives. You find them on Discord servers, on Instagram, on Facebook, or wherever, right? On YouTube streaming, on gaming platforms, on talking about NFTs and Web3 and whatnot, right? These need to be captured in different ways, not by traditional banking mechanisms that have happened so far. So that comes with a very core performance marketing skill that banks don't necessarily have right now. So that is what fintechs also bring in terms of adding distribution and taking care of the entire customer acquisition cost as well. So that's a significant advantage of capturing a new age customer archetype for the bank. Now, second, I think a couple of panelists have mentioned, I just want to stress on it, is that these fintechs can just go back to the drawing board and start thinking from first principles, right? Okay, you have a savings account, okay, you have a demat account, okay, you have, loan products available in the market, but how do you create experiences for the customer over and about traditional products. At the same time, innovate at the core product level itself, at the financial product level itself, right? Now that's a unique placement for a fintech to be able to pull that off alongside the bank, which again brings a win-win situation for both of them, right? So that I would say are the couple of points I just wanted to add in terms of the advantages of collaboration.
Thank you, Kashyap. See, we have all seen like the benefits of like online banking have forced the consumers like worldwide to accept neobanks. So in that circumstances, I would like add upon this question, like what are your views on digital disruption in banking and its impact on like competition? So I would like to ask Mr. Parikshit if you can like give your views on the same.
No, so the one of the obviously as the overall the neo-banking ecosystem evolves, it's only fair and expected for the traditional banking participants also to see that some degree of evolution coming, right? And again, like I've always maintained, that's actually good for the consumer. Ultimately, all of us have to make sure that we are doing what we're doing for the consumer. So if the banks do start to innovate, at the same time, that turns out to be healthy for the consumer as well. I mean, a lot of products like I think Kashmir has spoken about UPI. It would not have been possible without the explicit support and the necessary innovation that went in the core banking system. I mean, Bill Gates was the first one to come out and say that this is probably the world's most advanced payment system by far, right? And I think really as Indians, we need to pat ourselves on the back that we can call our banks traditional and all sorts of names that you want. But these are the guys that before all of us are doing what we're doing actually came about and sort of come up with something that's so far ahead of the global scene. I mean, America cannot think of deploying something like this in 5 years if they wanted to, right? So and that's been done with their sort of buy-in and wherewithal. So I think it's a natural byproduct as they see, and they're developing these investment arms. They're doing deep partnerships with other fintechs, and as Ashish mentioned that they are also starting to learn how data insights can actually improve their game. They can start to develop better experiences for traditional banking customers. So it's healthy for the ecosystem, right? There will be more innovation that will come from that end. From a competitive landscape, I think ultimately the industry is gonna. There will be a degree of consolidation, but ultimately you have to develop bespoke experiences for the right segments of the market. The way a set of millennials will deal with their money versus how teenagers will deal with their money versus how someone who's 75 years old will deal with their money will be entirely different. So while core innovation is very very healthy, I think the market is very large. So it's a positive sign. I think overall we're in a great situation, and we should really be focusing on our strengths, building out for the right segments of the market, and growing this industry together.
Thank you for your views, Mr. Parikshit. Again, like I would like to ask Mr. Neeraj, like what are your views on like digital disruption in banking and its impact on competition?
Right. So, I think as Parikshit said, so we will see innovation coming in from all sides, right? So, banking side will also try to innovate. Fintechs will innovate as well. Um, Definitely, I think the way in which this will evolve is, will be primarily based on talent availability, right? So for a banking player, how much they're able to push on the technology side will be a function of talent that they can attract. Of course, I think technology is also changing a lot and at speed. So maybe it just becomes a lot of things become commodity, right? Which means that the banks will also be able to do more. From a fintech side, of course, we have to build great experiences for users. So if you check out our application today, so on the Fi app, we built some interesting features or experiences around an assistant, a financial assistant, where you can ask interesting questions, right? You can ask the assistant, how much have you spent on Amazon? And then we can uh, pull in data from your transactions. We can pull in data from your other bank accounts, say, through we can pull in the data from Gmail. We have that feature already built today. So we have to build these kind of magical experiences for users, and that I think will really move the needle from a customer experience perspective. And all things being equal, we hope that customers will have the choice to choose who they want to bank with and be able to switch in a matter of minutes if they don't like an experience, right? So this space, I think, is going to be tremendously competitive in the years to come, and experiences that we build and add value for customers will be the key.
Very well said, Mr. Neeraj. Actually nowadays, like people are into like if they're getting some new thing, they are into it. If we have got something new, they move on as quickly as possible. So we like this is a competitive world as of right now. So yeah, moving ahead with the same question to Mr. Kashyap, if you can answer this, what are your views on digital disruption in banking and its impact on competition?
Right, right. So I think in terms of the competitive landscape, of course, it's a tough battle out there, right? Everybody's locking horns against each other. For typically, I think at the beginning, because of the nascent stage, typically people are eyeing at a similar kind of the market, which is urban millennials, Gen Z kind of a folks. Of course, as we go ahead, as the industry matures, you will find a lot more use cases being built for different segments of the new bank. Of course, also teenage neobanks are also quite competitive landscape today. But having said that, I think neobanks need to understand really what their core proposition is, in the sense that a lot of neobanks fall into the trap of thinking of a feature as a product innovation versus innovating at the core product itself. Right now, that is a very, I mean, it's a very how do I put it, challenging place to arrive at to understand whether what we're building is a unique product in itself or is just a feature that can be commoditized, right? And that is sort of which brings the edge, right? The competitive edge. If you have an innovative product, of course, to build that out, to scale it, to find your niche, and to build that distribution is not again easily replicable. But having said that, if you just have a feature and if you have a commoditized product, then it will be tough to sort of survive the battle, right? It's also a game of capital. Unfortunately, that's the truth. The more capitalized neobanks will definitely have an edge to sort of uh, do more of these experiments, innovate more, fail faster, as they say, and arrive at a unique proposition and survive the game, right? So the competition is tough, right? There's no two ways around it. I think anybody who's saying otherwise is just is just lying. So yeah, that's my a little bit about the competition part of it.
So like recently we just encountered like this on 1st of February budget. So basically, if we move ahead with that, like what is the scope, or you can say what are your views like on the recent budget which happened? Like what's the impact you think will be on the new banking sector or like the financial sector of new banking come out? If Mr. Neeraj, you can give some light on the same.
So yes, the budget was interesting, right? There were interesting announcements around financial inclusion, digital banking. There's this thing around 75 digital banking units in 75 districts to mark 75 years of independence, and it was also announced that 100% of post offices will come under core banking systems. Um, so we hope, I think, with all of this, coming in from a intent perspective from the government, and these kind of very strong statements being put out there, uh, new banks definitely will benefit, right? Uh, the financial inclusion for a vast population, somebody mentioned earlier that we are no longer a unbanked population, we are an underbanked population. So that financial inclusion has to increase, and neo banking will definitely play a huge part of it. And we hope the government and regulator will facilitate, through good regulations coming in that allow us to kind of operate in a predictable manner without kind of being tentative in where to invest. And hopefully, we can bring financial inclusion to a vast population, and expand into rural sectors and the traditionally kind of underbanked or non-banked areas or geographies. Yeah.
Thank you, Neeraj, for your views. I would like to ask the same question to Mr. Ashish. If you can, what's your views on the budget which was announced on 1st of April, like recently which was announced?
Yeah, sure. I believe Neeraj covered some part of it. Just to add to what Neeraj said, one of the other biggest announcements which may definitely impact the banking segment and neobanks is the introduction to the central bank digital currency. I think that was the other announcement which was done. And that probably they are saying using the blockchain technology. So I believe that I believe if that happens, then that may be the most historical and fundamental change in the global financial system, because everything from how the money is created to how the money is debited, the role of central banks, governments, how different financial institutions are going to get impacted, how transactions are processed, uh, probably the very nature of money itself and how it works. So all these things have the potential to be redefined and probably re-engineered. So I feel that these significant changes will definitely have significant implications. We'll see how it rolls out, this digital currency thing. I think this will be interesting to see how it rolls out.
Yeah, just if I may, so thanks Ashish for bringing that point. It's just an interesting uh, announcement in the budget, and this. I think the government is saying very clearly that they understand the involvement of the young millennial population in today's economy, and the taxation of crypto, the announcement of uh, the CBDC, all of that just feels like very revolutionary steps.
Thank you, Neeraj, and thank you, Ashish, for your views. I would like to ask this same question to Mr. Kashyap. What are your views on the budget which is announced? Like, what is the scope you think are there for new bankings? Because we have seen like a lot of announcements been made for new bankings.
Sure, I think most of the points were covered, but just my perspective would be that it's sort of the government sort of signaling and sort of encouraging more neobanks to be looking at financial inclusion kind of use cases, with especially with the post office work that they've done, and also the 75 sort of digital bank announcements in districts, right? So I think the next wave of neobanks that will come up will also think vernacular, will think of different use cases to be built for not maybe the urban crowd, but typically use cases for deeper parts of India, right? So that would be my sort of understanding of the couple of points mentioned. But also, I'm very excited for the CBDC aspect, right? That's going to come up. So that'll be a very interesting space to watch out for for neobanks and in general for the financial ecosystem as a whole, right? That's something I'm very very interested for.
Thanks, Kashyap, for your views. Mr. Parikshit, your views on the budget part.
So I think the other panelists have shed some very eloquent light on the matter. I feel like just from a signaling perspective, it is again very encouraging. I think the government is acknowledging the fact that a digital revolution is underway and it's here to stay, which is thematically talking about things like CBDC, things like expanding this digital banking footprint. So and again maintaining the theme of financial inclusion. What that means, for the market is that you have a government that is aligned with you in expanding the market, which can only be a healthy sign, right? So I think thematically it's very encouraging. The specific rollouts, we'll wait and watch and see how those specifics come out. But yeah, I think so. It seems very encouraging.
As just one last point, which is you just take a step back and look at it, right? With UPI, with CBDC, as well as with financial inclusion sort of activities with JAM previously, and now with sort of these 75 digital banks, India is just at the forefront of financial innovation in the world, right? There's no two ways around it. I think we as Indians want to sometimes get into the complaining zone about what things are not going well, but
Most
I think
times, that's a habit.
if you
Most
want to if you if you want to really look at where innovation is happening in the financial ecosystem, it is India. India is the land. India is a place to be, right? There's no two
absolutely.
ways about it. That's what excites all of us, I'm sure, as founders to be here in these times. So yeah, really looking forward to the days ahead.
Thanks, Kashyap. With this, I would like to quickly sum it up with 1 minute like feedback or review from each one of you. Like as the topic said, like future of digital finance in India. Are we ready for new banking? So quick input or feedback from Mr. Parikshit. First, we can go ahead with your input.
No, I mean, I'll kind of take off from what Kashyap said. I think we should all be really proud as Indians. We are really sitting at the forefront of innovation in this segment, technologically speaking. I don't think we celebrate that enough in our communities and in our ecosystem. So I think we should certainly do that. And I think future is very very bright. We have a friendly regulator. We have a government that's signaling that they want to expand the market for our space. We have, I mean, unprecedented amount of capital that has flown into this sector in the last year itself. I mean, so many unicorns have been created. Many of them are in the financial services space. So I mean, I don't think it's a perfect storm, right? It's really for us to take advantage of this and grow forward. I feel like we're all lucky to be in the right place at the right time, and hopefully we can collaborate as an ecosystem and really make this even better for all of us and for the country at large.
Moving ahead with a positive note to Mr. Ashish Tiwari, your like feedback or some like how will you sum it up? Like future of India digital finance.
Yeah, I believe that new banks and banks, if we want to democratize the access to financial services and financial institutions, I think that is the way that empowers the customers and the financial inclusion. There are a lot of many tools, AI, big data. We have been talking about that, and with government, opening up arms for all these things and welcoming us, I think yes, definitely we are ready for new banks in India.
Thank you for your views. Again, moving ahead with to Mr. Neeraj, your quick remark on the same.
Yeah, of course. I mean, like India is ready. We are ready as a company, as a sector. I had the privilege of going through the UPI revolution a few years back with a front row seat as an engineer on Google Pay, and I think, feel once again privileged to be part of this neo banking wave, and we'll see that this sector kind of establishes, and over the next couple of years. I would also say that as technologists, we should all, look beyond, right? Like for all, as I think Kashyap was saying, maybe we get into the complaining zone a little bit, but would like us to not rest on our laurels. I think for all the greatness of UPI, the protocol itself has fundamental improvements that can be made to make it much more reliable, right? So as technologists, I think we can go beyond where we are today and make our fintech revolution even better.
Thank you for your view, Mr. Neeraj. Again, quickly concluding remark by Kashyap. Would like to hear from you, future of digital finance in India, and what are your views, like how we should go ahead and move ahead with the same.
So we're at crossroads, right? Like I said, and of course, all the roads lead to a greater place, I believe. But of course, this, like Neeraj has mentioned, of course, should not lead to any kind of complacency. We have a great talent pool. We need to, I think about how to solve the talent acquisition problem in India, which is a significant challenge for any kind of tech-based company in India right now. That is something I am personally sort of worried about as a founder on a day-to-day basis, right? How do we retain talent? How do we sort of acquire good talent, improve their skill sets, and sort of retain them, right? This is a challenge I think everybody, all of us face on a day-to-day basis. But having said that, we have all the resources we need. We have a friendly regulator and a government that's always pushing forward startups as well as the fintech ecosystem in general, right? So I think it's a right recipe, and it's I think it's left to us to cook the best dish out of this.
Thank you, one and all the panel members. It was really nice connecting with you all, listening to your views and like knowledgeable insights, like from your experiences. So, thank you once again. Over to you, Shivani.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, panelists. That was one great session. Now, as a token of appreciation, I would like to present the certificates. Can we have the certificates? Thank you, Mr. Vaibhav Joshi, Chief Digital Officer, Equitas Small Finance Bank. Thank you, Mr. Ashish Tiwari, SVP and Head of Engineering, NEO. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Thank you, Mr. Rohit Garg, Co-founder and Chief Executive Officer, SmartCoin. Thank you, Mr. Neeraj Bhope, Founding Member, FI. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kashyap Mahavadi, Founder and Chief Executive Officer, Dinero Bank. Thank you for coming, sir. Thank you, Mr. Parikshit Chitalgar, Co-founder, Stashfin. Thank you, all of you, for joining this session and giving your valuable views.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah, thank you for having us in the forum.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so